Hello, all. I know you have missed me terribly and have been wanting desperately to hear my voice. That's why I took the time to go ahead and make this video just for you guys. I know you miss me just as much as I miss you. I do hope that you guys are well. If you, in all seriousness, have any needs that are not being met, because I know things are a little crazy at the moment, do let me know. Let me know. Let the ladies at the front office at the school know. Let Miss Berry, Miss Smith, any of those people know. And we're going to do what we can to help you out. So please do let us know, in all seriousness, if you have any needs that you feel aren't being met. I know it's a little crazy. I know we're going through a review, and some of this you're going to go, man, this is easy, not a problem. And some of it you're going to be scratching your head because you haven't done it in forever. I'm going to take the video to go through this. I'm going to hit some of these problems. If you're needing extra assistance, please don't hesitate to email me. I am available pretty much instantaneously during our normal school day. I know some of you are probably keeping much later hours than that right now because you don't have to get up and go to school. So some of you, about lunchtime when you wake up and you see this video is available, feel free to use it. I did post a quiz for you guys. It is intended to be done after you've done some review. It's based on this video right here, Solving Equations and Inequalities Review, going through these practice problems. I'm going to have one of those pretty much every day available for you, and that's just to kind of check to see if you understand it as well as you think you do, and that's also something for me so that I can see how y'all are doing and see what you need extra help with. Now, I know schedules are crazy, things are different. I'm going to be leaving these as I open them, leave them open for a week or two so that you have time to take them. I encourage you not to wait to the last minute to do those because they're going to stack up on you. So really try to take care of them. This is going to be a lot more effective if you hit a little bit every day anyway. Our goal was for you to not have more than an hour's worth of work of math a day, even if you had to go through all the problems and look up the videos and ask for help. Now, obviously, depending on how quickly you work and who you are, we may have overshot our goal, we may have undershot our goal. We did the best we could. This is new for all of us, so we did what we could. But please, if you have any needs that aren't being met, please let us know. And also, if this is insufficient, if you're needing extra help, please don't hesitate to email me. I am available. If it's outside of school hours, go ahead and email me. I won't guarantee that I'm pretty much instantaneously answering you back. It's just going to take me a little longer to get there, just like it normally does. But, feel free to email me about whatever questions you may have school related. But I will go ahead and tell you, if the question is, are we coming back next week? The answer is, I don't know. I know everything you guys know about that, but as soon as I know more, I'll update you. So right now we're going to roll along assuming like we've got class like normal, and I'm going to go through as many of these as I can. Well, I'm not as many as I can, but I'm going to go through quite a few of them just to give you some hands-on and some reminders of things you may have forgotten. So first off, things to remember, PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and that stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, and addition and subtraction. Just remember that this always applies in anything we're doing. Now, obviously, sometimes our first goal is we jump to parentheses, but there's not anything we can do to the parentheses. Anytime that's the case, we just move on to the next one. But these things always apply in every equation we solve, no matter what we're doing with it. We always have those order of operations, and sometimes that's something we forget. Do keep in mind also that you've got some that are grouped together. You've got your multiplication and division, those are grouped together, and you've got your addition and subtraction that are grouped together. Anytime you've got those, they're going to be done as you come to them left or right. Not all the multiplication and then all division. You do multiplication and division together as you come to it. Same thing with addition and subtraction. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into problem 1 here. Let me go ahead and clear this out and get that written down. So what we have is 5 plus n divided by 3 equals 8. anytime we have something like this where you've got mixed addition and subtraction, multiplication, division, that kind of thing, generally, the easiest thing to do is to get addition and subtraction gone first. Get that moved over to your constants over on the other side. So on this one, we're going to move that 5 over here with this 8. And the reason we do that is just because it makes it a lot easier for us. What that's going to do is combine like terms. That way, when we take care of this division here in a little bit, we don't have to remember to do it to every single term, because that's the only other way to do it is we multiply or divide everything by that. And this just makes life easier. So what we're going to do first, we're going to move that 5. We look at it, it is a positive 5, so that means our opposite operation is going to be subtraction. So we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. That cancels out there, and that gives us n divided by 3 equals 8 minus 5 is 3. Now, if you guys had me last semester, you may or may not remember me talking about something like this. This is a boat with an anchor, and just like any boat, if the anchor is still down, that boat doesn't go anywhere. So we got to take care of that anchor first. Well, in this case, that anchor is dividing by 3. So what we're going to do to get rid of dividing by 3 is the opposite of that. So we're going to multiply by 3, which cancels those guys out. But if I do it to one side, I've got to do it to the other. So now the only thing that's left on this side over here is that n. So I'm going to bring it down. So I have n equals 3 times 3 is 9. So my final answer on there is going to be n equals 9. Pretty straightforward, right? Not too bad. So let's go through our next one here that involves some multiplication. So again, I'm going to clear this out and get us started. So here we have 4 times negative 3 plus b equals negative 24. It's number 2 right over there to the side. Anytime we've got this, as I told you, remember order of operations. So our initial thought is to jump on this set of parentheses here, but if we look in there, there's nothing we can do with negative 3 and b. So we're actually going to go past, there's no exponents, we're going to go ahead and do that multiplication and division. That 4 on the outside of parentheses, if you'll remember, is the distribution property. So that 4 gets multiplied by everything in that set of parentheses. So let's go ahead and distribute that out. Take that 4 and we're going to distribute it to the negative 3. 4 times negative 3 gives me negative 12. 4 times b gets me 4b. Bring down my equals negative 24 because we didn't change that. Then, just like we did on the last problem, we're going to get rid of our addition and subtraction first. In this case, since we're wanting that variable to stay put, we're going to move that minus 12 there. And to do that, we're going to do the opposite of that. So we're adding 12. Remember, we want opposite signs so they cancel out. And plus 12 to that side. Those 12s are going to cancel out. We're going to bring down that 4b because we didn't change it at all. And that gives me negative 12 on this side because negative 24 plus 12 gives me negative 12. What I'm going to do next is get rid of this division. And right here, this multiplication by division. Anytime I've got a number and a letter touching, they're multiplying. So we want to separate those. That's how we keep things from multiplying, is we separate them. So we're going to divide that out. Divide by 4, divide by 4, and I get b equals negative 3. And that's going to be our final answer for number 2 up here. B equals negative 3. And feel free to rewatch any of this, slow it down, pause it. I always like to try to throw a reminder in there as you're going. Do know that if you don't need all of these examples, you do not have to watch this whole video. Please jump around to what you need to do. If you're just wanting to check an answer or two, you're welcome to do that too. I'm not going to do every single problem because this thing would be an hour long, especially with me talking through, stopping and talking all of it. But I am going to do several of the problems here and give you that example. And as I said, if you need additional help, please don't hesitate to ask. So let me go ahead and set up my next one here. I'm actually going to skip a couple because the next 3 or 4 there are, there's about 5 or 6 there are very similar to those first 2 examples. And I'm actually going to go to some of the ones further down that have a little more involvement in them. So let me take a second, clear this out and clean that up. All right, if we look at this one, we've got a couple of things going on. We've got this right here. We've got to distribute that 8 to those things on the inside. But if you also look, I've got an a on the left and an a on the right, as well as constants on left and right. That means not only are we going to have to go ahead and distribute, and we're going to have to move that addition and subtraction, those constants, get those out of the way, we're also going to have to move some variables. So like I said, we've got a little more involvement here, that we've got multiple steps we've got to take care of. So let's walk our way through this one. First thing we're going to do is we're going to distribute that 8. And you remember, when we distribute, it goes to everything inside the parentheses. So that 8 times 3a, all it's going to affect are the coefficients, that front number. So 8 times 3 gives me 24, and I bring down the a because that doesn't change. Then I've got 8 times 7. 8 times 7 gives me 56. Negative 40, bring that down, plus 8a. I know y'all are used to me pausing and asking you those things, but when I got a video like this, I don't like to pull a Dora the Explorer and, hey, let's find the blue cactus over here. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. No, I don't like doing that. That's no fun for me. Pull a Bob Ross and, doodle in the corners or something maybe later. But as we're solving this here, what we're going to do to make our lives a little bit easier is we're going to move all the variables to one side and all the constants to one side. And it doesn't really matter which one we do first. However, because I know how much we love negatives, and by that I'm being completely sarcastic and know that you absolutely hate negatives, it makes our lives a little easier if you'll start with the variable and move the smaller one. So in this case, the 8a. Because if you move the smaller one, what that does is that makes sure that your variable will always be positive. Keep in mind that negative numbers are smaller than positive numbers. That's going to make your life a little easier when you do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this 8a. It's currently positive, so we're going to subtract that 8a. We're going to subtract it from 8a. Notice I grouped the variables together. I put the 8a with the 24a, not with the 56, because these are not like terms. Keep that in mind as you're solving here. So 24 minus 8 gets me 16, plus 56 equals negative 40. Now I'm going to move my constant over here. Now, this one is going to be negative, but that still keeps us from dividing by that negative negative variable there. And also keeps me from having to remember to get rid of negative at the end, which some of us struggle with. So it's still going to make your life easier. We're going to subtract that 56 minus 56. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get 16a equals negative 96. Notice they have same signs here, so they're going to work together and get a bigger number. Anytime you got same sign, they're going to work together and get a bigger number. All that's left here is divide by 16. So when I divide by 16, let me go back to a different color here. Divide by 16, divide by 16. And what we get is a equals negative 6. Sorry, I forgot that negative there. Because we had a negative 96 when we started there, divided by a positive number. Negative divided by a positive is always a negative. Now this was number 11 for those of you following along over here. So number 11 down here is a equals negative 6. So there's an example of one that's a little more involved. We've got several steps going on there. I'm also going to hit one or two more here, and then I'm going to hit one or two down here in the inequality section so that we've got that as well. So give me a minute here. Let me clear this and go ahead and set up the next one. All right, if we look at number 13, we've got a number of things going on here, including 1, 2, 3 constants. We got to, variables. Goodness, can't talk. Got 3 different sets of the same variable here. That means when we're done, we've still got to combine all of those, and we should have one variable and one constant when we're done. So we got to move all those to one side and all the constants to the other. So a little more work involved with this one. We're still going to start getting rid of those parentheses. So what we're going to do, we're going to distribute those out. So we're going to copy down the things we didn't use. So negative 12 gets brought down. Negative 5m gets brought down. Equals 3m. Then we get to the stuff we're distributing. So 4 times negative 3m gets me negative 12m. and 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. Do pay attention that these right here are negative. So your answers, since that 4 is positive, a positive times the negative is always going to be a negative answer. So we're going to make sure that follows us as we're going down the line there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to combine some like terms. Anything we can do to reduce the number of terms we have is going to make our life easier. So we're going to do that. We're going to combine those. So again, we're bringing down stuff we don't use. So negative 12 minus 5m equals 3 minus 12. 3 minus 12 is going to get me a negative number because if you look there, the 12 is bigger. Sorry there. And the 12 is larger. So its sign is going to win. So they're going to fight each other, get a smaller number. So what I'm going to have is negative 9m when I'm done, minus 24 because I didn't change it any and I brought it down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start moving variables. And remember, it's easier to move the smallest variable first. Well, we got to look here. We got a negative 5 and a negative 9. And remember, the bigger the negative number it is, the smaller it is. Think of it on the number line. The further left on the number line it is, the smaller it's going to be. The further right on the number line it is, the larger it's going to be. So in this case, that negative 9 is the smaller of the two numbers. So I'm going to move it. So plus 9m. Plus 9m. Again, remembering to line those variables up. Make sure you line the variable up with the variable, not with the constant, as those are not like terms. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and combine those. Negative 12. Then I have negative 5 plus 9. It's going to give me positive 4m. These guys cancel out. I'm going to bring down my negative 24 I didn't use. Now I'm able to go in and take care of my constants. That's going to be negative 12 I want to move. I don't want to move negative 24 because if I do that, I'm moving things over with my variable. My goal is to move things away from the variable. And I know that's something a lot of you have trouble with. You're trying to move everything in one direction, and that doesn't work. When I'm done, I got to have variables on one side and constants on the other. So since I move my variables that way, I want to move my constants the other way. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. I'm going to have negative 12 here. I'm going to move that by doing the opposite, positive 12. Bring down the 4m I didn't use. And that gets me negative 12 because negative 24 plus 12 is negative 12. Change colors once again. I'm going to separate these things. They are touching, so they're trying to multiply. The way I keep them from multiplying is by separating them, or in this case, dividing them. So I'm going to divide by 4. Divide by 4, m equals negative 3. So a little more involved there, but not too bad. Just really paying attention to your signs, paying attention to which direction things are moving, that kind of thing is really what's going to be important for this. I'm going to go ahead and go over one or two of the inequalities. So again, let me clear this out of the way and get us set up for the next one. Okay, so now we have inequalities. That's this symbol right here. And the only difference when we are solving inequalities is we have to watch for one thing. Anytime we are multiplying or dividing by a negative, we've got to remember to flip this inequality sign to be facing the other direction. Now, pretty much the only time that's ever going to happen is when my variables wind up being negative. So if I look here on number 16, that's down here over on the side, if I look, my variable is positive. There are no other variables in this problem. There is no way for this to become anything other than positive, so I will not be flipping my sign. As I go through this, there is one that I will be flipping my sign. I'm going to go over that. But we're going to worry about this one first. So this one we're not going to have to worry about flipping because my variable's positive and there's nothing in this problem that could make it negative. So I'm going to go ahead and work on what I can do. I'm going to work on combining like terms first, because remember, anytime we can reduce the number of terms, it makes our life easier. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down the 3p because I haven't used it yet. So 3p, 8 plus 3 gives me 11, is greater than or equal to negative 13. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do just like I did with my equations further up over here when I was solving those, and I'm going to move the constant first. So on this one, I'm going to do the opposite of positive 11. So if I'm adding 11, the opposite of that would be subtracting 11. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 11 from both sides. Those are going to cancel out. I'm going to bring down the 3p because I didn't change it. I'm going to go ahead and bring down my inequality symbol because I didn't change it. And then if I notice these two numbers right here, they have the same sign. Both are negative, so they're going to work together, give me a bigger number. So it's going to be like adding. 13 and 11 gives me 24, so that's negative 24. Remember, when we're adding or subtracting, it's not two negatives make a positive. That's only multiplying and dividing. When we're adding and subtracting, same sign, they work together to get a bigger number. Different signs, they fight each other and get a smaller number. Big number sign wins. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these two. Remember, if I've got two things that are touching, they're trying to multiply. The way we keep them from multiplying is by separating them. The way we separate is dividing. So divide by 3, divide by 3. I get p is greater than or equal to negative 8. Alrighty. Now, I don't know about you guys, but going through this video is a little bit different. I find myself gesturing to things, and you guys cannot see that. I'm trying to remember to point to things with my laser pointer when I really need you to see things, because every once in a while I start gesturing with things with my hands and realize there's no way you guys can see that. So, let's roll along here. As I said, there is one here with a negative, so let's do that one next. Okay, so this is one of those I was talking to you about that I'm going to have to remember to flip this sign. And the reason is, when I go over here and I combine like terms, what's going to happen to this variable is this one being negative and larger is going to make that variable negative. So what I'm actually going to do is go ahead and combine those like terms, and I get 15 is less than or equal to negative 3n. And I told you pretty much the only time you're ever going to have to remember to flip that sign is when your variable winds up being negative. Now, I had two different ones here that combined. Sometimes when I combine them, neither of them's, they combine to be a positive number. And if that's the case, I don't have to worry about it. But if they combine and wind up being a negative number, or if they start being a negative number, I am going to have to remember to flip that sign when I solve. Now, this one is set up pretty much ready to go now. All I have to do is separate the coefficient from the variable. This right here, that negative 3 from the n. And the way I'm going to do that, I've got two things that are touching each other. So they're trying to multiply. Anytime two things are trying to multiply, I separate them. And I do that by division. So I divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. The challenge is I have to remember to flip this sign. Anytime I do divide by that negative number, I got to remember to flip that sign. So what's going to happen, I'm going to bring down my n down here. This is now a sign that way, greater than or equal to. And 15 divided by negative 3 gives me negative 5. Now, I can write it down just like it is, just like this. However, most of you are used to writing it with the variable on the left and the constant on the right. Here's the tricky part. If I'm going to rewrite it that way, I have to pretend that answer right there is like a pancake. I've got to scoop under it and I got to flip the whole thing over. So everything changes direction. Mainly what I'm saying here is this narrow side still has to be pointing at the n, and the big open side has to be pointing at the negative 5. So when I rewrite that and I flip it the other direction, it's going to look like n is less than or equal to negative 5. Either of those answers are acceptable. The challenge is you've got to be able to recognize both of them, because on your EOC, if we still have EOCs, we're assuming we still do. If not, in Math 2, Math 3, anytime you're dealing with inequalities, what's going to happen, they may write it either direction. They may write it just as you would come to it there, but they may go ahead and flip it up looking like this one. So you need to be able to recognize that both of those are the same. No, that was not a hint that we have no EOCs. I have no idea. I'm not trying to hint one way or the other. I'm saying everything's up in the air, and you know as much as I do. So we're rolling along assuming that things are going to be like normal. So n is less than or equal to negative 5. We've got one more here I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over number 19 just because it may wind up being confusing as you go to do this. The rest of these should be very similar to other examples I've done. But as I've said before, I know you're about 25 minutes in at this point, so you're probably a little tired of listening to me. If you're still with me, hopefully you've been skipping around and just finding the parts you need. But if you find you have follow-up questions, please feel free to email me and ask. Let me set that up All right, the reason I wanted to go over 19 is this one might wind up being a little tricky or confusing once you go ahead and combine like terms. And the like terms we have right here are the 4p minus 4p. Well, anytime I subtract something from itself, I get subtract the exact same number. What's going to happen is when I combine those, I get 0. And if it'll let me write it down here, there we go. I get 0 is greater than or equal to 0. Now, this is technically the answer. 0 is greater than or equal to 0. You may see other things. They may talk about infinitely many solutions as being the other option there. Because it doesn't matter what number I plug in for P, that statement is still going to be true. Because if I plug that in, just picking a number at random, let's say I said P was 2. When I go to plug that in, I've got 4P minus 4P. Oops, let's change that to a 2 instead of a P. Is greater than or equal to 0. Well, I've got 4 times 2, which gives me 8, minus 4 times 2, which is 8, is greater than or equal to 0. 8 minus 8 is, of course, 0. It's greater than or equal to 0. So I can have 0 is greater than or equal to 0 as my answer for 19, but I also would see infinitely many solutions. Infinitely, that's how I remember to spell it. Many solutions. All right. Now, that is clearly not every single problem, but that's a good hands-on of what you've got here. There were plenty of other videos included in the resources folder. Please feel free to use those as well. Don't hesitate to email me if I can't find a video or suggest if I can't answer your question over email. What I'll do is if I have to make you a short one working through the problem you need to as a video like this, it doesn't take very long and I don't mind at all because you guys don't have me sitting there answering questions for you. I know this is different. I know this is a little odd, but stay with me. Be patient. Don't give up. We'll get there. As you're completing these things to help me out so I can look at these things and see how you're doing, ideally what's going to happen if you would be able to upload these as a Google slide, and I'm actually going to send out instructions here in a minute how to do that. Probably going to be the easiest way as you're going through those so that I can look over them. That's also a good way if you're needing to ask a question. You could take a picture of the problem you need and I could certainly send you back an answer working through. Like I said, we're trying to stay flexible with things and how we do it, so please take your time, do your best, and stay on top of this. Do a little bit every day. Wait until the end, or even wait until we get back, assuming we come back. Wait until we get back is going to be a crazy amount of work. You don't want to do that, I promise. You want to try to do as much as you can as we roll along. So, again, if you need anything, give me a holler.